You are listening to the In Between Sales Calls podcast with Derek Shebby, episode 21. Welcome, everyone. Here's another request. I love getting requests. Hey, just send me one by connecting with me on LinkedIn or my Facebook page just to let me know. Also, smash that subscribe button and leave me a review, will ya? I appreciate it. Okay, let me start off by saying something that not too many sales managers or sales leaders recognize. Asking questions is an advanced skill. Seriously. How many different ways have you been taught to ask good questions so far? Think about it. There's the open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. I know you've done that one. There's the follow-up questions training, second and third level questions. There's the, here's a list of questions I recommend you ask if you're trying to find an opportunity for XYZ product, right? And guess what? You still don't feel confident asking good questions on the call. I'm not surprised. I've tried those methods myself. I've tried them for myself. I've tried them for my reps. I've tried them for the teams that I support. And guess what? You get the same results no matter which way you do it. It's time to do things differently. It's time to try a new approach. It's time to draw a line in the sand and actually get better at asking great questions. Today's success habit is to apply Derek's method of questioning through understanding. I just made that title up right now. I kind of like it. But seriously, I've got 4 steps that will help you, whether you're a sales leader coaching their team, a manufacturer trying to get their distributors to ask better questions that find leads for your product, or a sales rep that's just looking to become great at asking great questions. This will help you learn how to instinctively know what questions to ask your clients. You ready? Let's start by choosing one of your products or services that you sell. I would probably start with the one that you make the most money on, but that's just me. Okay, write that solution down. Now here's the method. Step 1 is to build your confidence around what problems or challenges your product actually solves your target customer. I'll say it again. Step 1 is to build your confidence around what problems or challenges your product actually solves your target customer. So if you're going to be engaging in a conversation, which is what you're doing when you ask great questions, you need to know what you're talking about or else you won't feel comfortable inside the conversation itself. The way we get comfortable is by having relevant examples of what a company's business looks like before your solution is introduced. How are they doing what your solution does for them now? How are they doing that? Was it done manually? Was there some homegrown solution they made? Is another vendor doing it poorly? What frustrations are they experiencing? You got to understand it. What risks could they be exposed to? Is all this making sense? What are the costs associated in their organization just sticking with the status quo? And what made them think, that's it. It's time for us to do something about this. It's time for us to fix it. How well do you understand what makes them do that? What makes it trigger change? This is commonly referred to as the root of the problem or understanding their current situation. This is where ultimately you'll be spending your time asking questions. But we won't go there yet. So let's move on to step 2. Step 2 is to consider how you could identify if one of your target customers is going through this sort of challenge today. So think about it. Now that we've just identified what those challenges look like, the next thing is how do we find out if one of our customers are actually going through that? So remember, often people are doing things a certain way because that's the way that they've always done it. They might not be aware that they even have a problem at all. You need to find out if they're actually doing these things that way, and then you need to interrupt that habit. So how could you find this out? Here's a way that I've always liked to put it. What might it sound like from your customer's perspective if they had this challenge? What would people at their company be saying, expressing, verbalizing, complaining? Can you hear them actually saying it? Can you hear their frustration? Well, here's another way. What might it look like at the customer's organization if they had this challenge? What would the visible cues look like? Can you see it in your mind? Can you see these daily problems they've just come to accept? Okay, now that you've really got a picture and can visualize what's going on in the customer's environment, what questions could you ask one of your customers to identify if they have these challenges? Write them down. Create a list. This should be flowing right now. Pause the episode if you need more time. You want to write down as many questions that come to your mind. The more questions you can write down, the more locked in you are with the problems your customers are actually facing and how your solution can help them. If you're having difficulty coming up with the questions, I would start over, because remember, the first thing that you got to understand is, how does your product or service that you're selling solve challenges for companies, right? You need to think about that. How does it actually do that? What challenges are they having? And then, like we did in step 2, you need to really lock in on what those challenges might sound like if you were there, if you worked for that company, and then what they might look like if you're visually seeing them happen, right? When you are locked in like that, then it's just a matter of asking questions about, are they having those sort of things happen? Whatever those things are, that's what you're asking questions about. Okay, let's move on to step 3. Step 3 is to practice connecting the finding of these challenges with your next step. Think of step 3 as your bridge to your solution. Now let me set the stage. You, now that you've felt more comfortable in what your client's going through, have prepared challenges around discovery and understanding if they're actually experiencing these challenges today. You have the conversation down, and it's not an interrogation, right? You talk, you listen, you explore. You find without a doubt that they're experiencing these challenges today, and you know that your solution could help. Well, how do you bridge the gap between their current status quo state and your solution? That's where we're at in step 3. The conversation bridge shouldn't go like, oh, it sounds like you have this problem. I have a solution. Do you want to buy it? Yeah, I know. It sounds cheesy. I could hear you saying, Derek, I would never say that, except when you do. When you're on the spot, when you need to find a way to connect the dots, when the pressure is on. Because asking good questions is, say it with me, an advanced skill. Good. So we need to practice your bridge. You will need to practice one that works best with the way that you communicate. Here's an example of one that I would use. What you just explained to me sounds so frustrating. Have you ever explored to see if there's an easier or more effective way to do it? Or you could say, I might have something that could make your life a whole lot easier here, but I'm not sure. Why don't we set up a quick demo to find out? Pause the episode and write down what your bridge is to your solution. It's important that you're smooth with whatever your bridge is. Once you have that written out for step 3, let's move on to step 4. Step 4 is to create multiple scenarios for you to continue practicing. I know, shocker, right? Role play. Give yourself a pat on the back if you called that one. I know Derek is going to find a place in here for role play. Well, I'm glad that you're listening. Choose a scenario. That should be easy at this point. You know your customers, right? Just choose a company and pretend you're meeting with your ideal client and practice asking your questions from step 2. Ask more questions. Practice having a conversation without selling. Get comfortable with asking about the current situation. And once you think you've found enough proof, move on to your bridge question and close for the next step. Once that's done, start again with a different customer experiencing slightly different challenges. Practice again and again, out loud. And when you feel like you can really understand how your solution solves those problems, why don't you get out there and have some real conversations? So let's recap the 4 steps we've gone through today. Step 1 is to build your confidence around what problems or challenges your product actually solves your target customer. Step 2 is to consider how you could identify if one of your target customers is actually going through this sort of challenge today. Step 3 is to practice connecting the finding of one of these challenges with your next step using your bridge. And step 4 is to create multiple scenarios to practice and keep building up this skill in different ways, right? Now, will you get better right away? Maybe. However, you shouldn't look at it this way. Remember, this is an advanced skill. That means you must plan for the long game here. I also recommend you do the same thing, the same 4 steps, for all the major differentiators of your products or services. Then you'll thank me when you're selling more value and more deals than ever. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for allowing me to join you on your sales journey. See you next time. Hey, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, then you have to come check out my free 5-day sales training course of my proven Sales in 21 Days program. I designed it to help you make more money in sales. Whether you're looking for a fast start or just looking to sharpen your skills, you can't afford to miss it. Come get free access today over at www.salesin21days.com. That's www.salesin21days.com. I'd love to have you join the program. See you there.